And welcome back. Well, we are going to delve into Lee's favourite genre of film again right now. We're going to delve into horror because a little horror film has kind of snuck into Australian cinemas without very much fanfare. There was no media screening for this one. It is called The Strangers Chapter 1. Now, if that name, The Strangers, means something to you, yes, there was a movie a few years ago called The Strangers, and this film is tied into this in the sense that it is practically a remake but with an extension because Rennie Harlan is basically making three films: The Strangers Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3. So if you have seen the movie with Liv Tyler years before, you will have a strange sense of familiarness with this movie, which I had, didn't I, Lee, during the film?
Yes.
Where when the villains rocked up in The Strangers Chapter 1, I turned around to Lee and said, I think I've seen this film before. But basically this is, it's weird to describe. It's a remake, but also a prequel in a sense. But it revolves around a young couple, Maya, played by Madeline Pesh, who, if you watch Riverdale, you will definitely recognize. And also Ryan, played by Freud Gutierrez, who are on a trip to take her to her new job. And they end up getting stuck in this small backwater town in America where their car breaks down and they are forced to stay in a cabin overnight, which is an Airbnb. But that is when they suddenly become the victim of a group of killers that you don't learn the identity of, that are known as Scarecrow, Dollface, and Pin Up. So, so you're kind of left wondering who they are. But Lee, you love horror. What did you think of The Strangers Chapter 1?
I found it really interesting in terms of when this couple arrives to the town, there's some kind of clues that, this little town
They're not wanted.
sees couples as not being married as sinful. Like there's some little, some little clues there that they're very religious, I guess. They
It's supposed to be Mormon. I read that afterwards, that it's supposed to be a Mormon town, yeah.
But it seemed like, there were clues there very clearly that, they're celebrating an anniversary, and as soon as they kind of highlight that their anniversary is obviously from dating, not being married, there's some reactions there, and they're kind of subtle, but you know that there's an issue. The town has an issue. And so there's a bit of mystery around the town. You're trying to figure out what this town's all about. But then, of course, they end up in a secluded area with no car, no transport, so they can't get themselves around very well. And there's no one really around them that would be able to help them if something went wrong. And so then you have the isolation, and you know that if things go wrong, they're in trouble. And so you're getting to know the characters, you're getting to know who they are, and then there's some weird things that start happening. Someone keeps coming to the front door, and you can tell that there's something really wrong here. There's something underlying. There's something underneath of just non-acceptance, and that it's going to turn into something more than that. And so, of course, then the storyline goes on into them being attacked, basically, and the fight for their life, and the trying to escape. Now, during this film, I did like this film. There were some moments though where I was like, oh, what are you doing? Like, and a lot of horror movies do it. Like,
it's very tropey. It's the things that Scary Movie makes fun of.
Yeah. Like you, I know you forget to turn your phone onto silent in a moment where you're hiding, and this could be life and death for you.
You decide to run when you're probably better off staying in the shed that you're in with a loaded shotgun.
Yeah. Or you run into a shed when really maybe you should be getting out into the open because now you're trapped. Or you run upstairs, or
you keep dropping your asthma puffer,
Yeah, so that's all in it. And so there's that little bit of frustration, you kind of find yourself invested in the film, what are you doing that for? And so, yeah, but at the same time, I did find it, quite intriguing. I wanted to know who the attackers were.
Gotta wait for that.
Yeah. And I thought that it was quite creative in the way that they set up the people attacking them as well. And as I said, there was quite a fair bit of mystery. So there's some running out into the bush area. There's scenes with that, but then there's also where they're trapped inside. I did enjoy it. I'm looking forward to part 2. I did not realise, I should have read it properly, I didn't realise this was a part 1, and so then when I finished I went, what? Oh no, it's only part 1. There's no full resolution at the end. Now maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but I think you still need to watch the credits for this one.
Yeah, definitely. So why we're talking about it in that way is that basically this film came about because the director, screenwriter Rennie Harlin actually wrote this in originally as a 280-page long script. Now, to put that in perspective, most feature film scripts are about 90 pages. So he wrote 280 pages for this screenplay. Now, Rennie Harlin is well known in the horror genre. Of course, he has directed in the Elm Street franchise. He directed Deep Blue Sea. He's also worked in the Exorcist franchise. So he's a pretty good horror filmmaker. Now, after he wrote that screenplay, his idea was to make this all one movie. He was talked by the studio into making it a part 1, part 2, and part 3. But his idea, once all 3 films have been released, is to make a supercut of the movie, which will be about 300 minutes or 5 hours in length. That's his ultimate aim with this. So this is chapter 1 of that. Also, I think that is why you can kind of excuse this movie for being the way that it is, because, how do I say this without a spoiler? This whole movie is almost what, in a lot of horror movies, would be the first 20 minutes of a film to set up what becomes of a character. Not saying which character, but the end credit sequence in this shows that a character is going through a huge awakening. And yeah, like I said, in most horror movies, that would happen in the movie, and this movie would be the first 20 minutes of the film. So I think you've got to forgive parts of this movie because of that fact. It's like watching Lord of the Rings and going, well, I wasn't happy with the first film because he didn't get the ring to the mountain in the first film. It's part of the journey, and this is part of the journey that this character is going to go through. What did kind of annoy me with this movie was, as Lee and I already mentioned, the tropes. There were so many Hollywood tropes in this that, like I said, Scary Movie have made fun of them. You notice things like people running the wrong way now because of the famous Scary Movie sequence where the girl is running and one sign says to safety and the other says to death, and she runs the to death way. Those things have all been highlighted now because of films like Scary Movie that parody horror films. So when you see them in a film these days, you kind of groan. But look, I think there's a lot in this movie that did keep me on the edge of my seat. There's a lot of suspense in this movie, but part of the suspense for me was not knowing who these killers were. Were they people that just randomly picked this cabin? Was there a reason they picked that cabin? Were they people that we'd met in the town already?
I think they were, but
yeah
I have my own suspicion.
Yeah, but look, it's an interesting concept that Rennie Harlin has done. I've got to say, I can't wait for Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and I probably will be one of those people that goes along to the Astor or somewhere like that and watches the 5-hour cut when it's all released together and brought out, because I think that in itself would add a new element to this, because you wouldn't have that bit that's in this movie where it feels like it's been stuck onto the end because it's in the credits. Like, that would all be in the film if you were watching the 5-hour one. So look, The Strangers Chapter 1, if you are a horror fan, I would go along and watch this movie just for this experience that's happening. It's not going to be one of those franchises where a director promises a trilogy and then we only see one movie, because he shot all 3 films back to back in 52 days when they were making it. So they're all going to come out. Maybe they won't end up all being cinema releases. If the first movie flops, they might go to a streaming platform like Shudder or something like that. Well, it's a Lionsgate movie, so it'll probably go to Lionsgate's own streaming platform. But yeah, they are going to come out at some stage. So we didn't really touch on the acting, but I actually really thought that the acting in this was kind of good. It was interesting seeing Madeline Pesh play a different character to her character in Riverdale, because like she's different in every single sense. So it was good seeing her get a role like that. And I also thought that Froy Gutierrez was good as well as Ryan, and I love the townspeople as well. Like you watch a movie like Wrong Turn, and people talk about Eliza Dushku being so good in that movie, but the villains have got to be good as well, or else the film's not interesting. So I think the actors playing the villains in this movie do a really good job as well. But Lee, what are you going to give The Strangers Chapter 1 out of 5 and why?
I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5. Overall, I liked the movie. I just would have liked to have seen those, as I said, frustrations of, the scenes where you're kind of like, why are you doing it that way? What are you doing? You're running to danger, not away. Or, I've dropped my mobile phone, or all those sorts of things. That make it seem like the characters are a bit not as smart as they were.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I would like to have seen it be a bit more serious in terms of their decision making, because I think this film was good, but it could have been great.
Yeah, definitely. So what did you give it out of 5?
3.5.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to give this one 3 out of 5. I think it's a worthy film. It's a worthy horror film. If you kind of like that Wrong Turn, The Hills Have Eyes kind of horror, you'll definitely enjoy this one. Like I said, I'm a little bit forgiving with some of the things that happen in this film, just because I know that this is just the first third of the film, technically. It is coming out as 3 movies, but this is, in Rennie Harlan's mind, this is just the first third of the movie. So I guess we'll get to see where it's going to go from there on. But The Strangers Chapter 1 does have a limited release, so make sure you check your local cinema guide to see if it's showing near you. Lee gave it
3.5.
And I am giving it 3 out of 5. So go and check out The Strangers Chapter 1, and then keep an eye out for Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and the Supercut.